All right, we are live. Hello, welcome. I am BrigantiaBlackbird. It is October. Finally, we made it. So glad to have you here. If you are tuning in on the live and not on the replay, please be sure to say hello to me in the live chat. I will be looking for, comments, reactions, and whatnot. It always makes for a better live stream if things are a little bit more interactive. Otherwise, it's just me rambling, which, let's admit, is of limited value. So if you want to speak up at any point, please don't be shy. I will definitely respond to anything that is on topic. Now, before we get started, I guess smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That would be hugely appreciative. And yeah, let's do this. It's October. I realize that in many parts of the country, the weather is not acting like it's October. It certainly hasn't been in Missouri. The first day of October, Sunday, it was 91 freaking degrees. Now, mind you, that did not stop me from baking an apple pie and, lighting an apple candle and putting, the first seasonal brew and protection spell into the crock pot and having everything bubble along. Yeah, I had to do something atmospheric because, my goodness, we waited long enough. Now, it has been a little while, and in case anyone was curious, let me show you what I've been up to. You see those two little adorable kittens? Well, their mama cat left them on my doorstep and my porch here in town, and they were by themselves, and they would have died, and I couldn't have it, and so there they are. I took that picture. I might have had them for a week by the time I took that particular picture, but yeah, but since then they have grown by leaps and bounds. And oh, look, we have Isadora, my lovely assistant. And now I took that picture of Herbie and Daisy yesterday. For a few days, Herbie did have us fooled. We initially thought he was a girl, and then on closer inspection, oh, it's definitely a boy. But as you can see, they have gotten so big. They're so much larger in size. They have these adorable, super sweet personalities. They're exploring, running, jumping, doing all of the cat things, driving my older cats crazy, but they have more or less kind of settled into everything. So that has been good. So, as most of you are aware, my husband and I have been working furiously on the farmhouse, and there have been absolutely maddening delays. We just about had the bathroom sorted out in the house, and lo and behold, some of the structural beams beneath it were a little spongy. And so they had to be replaced, and my husband's had to do all sorts of things with that. And then we discovered that, oh, there's suddenly no electric up in our bedroom. So what happened there? We need to find the fault in the wire. And that led my husband on a rather interesting multi-day wild goose chase. Apparently, when they put electric into the house, because this house was obviously built before electric, before indoor plumbing and all that. But apparently someone said, what we need to do is find ourselves a squirrel. And we'll just give the squirrel the wire and tell him to just kind of run it through the walls. And however it ends up being, that's just how it is. Because that certainly is how it appears from the outside as we're trying to retrace the steps of whoever it was that actually laid that initial wire. I mean, my goodness. Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. But we are getting through it, even though I wish we were already there. We certainly had intended to already be there. Not super happy about that, but it will get resolved in time. Next up, on the 14th of this month, we will have the new moon in Libra. And on the same day, we will have a solar eclipse. You've probably heard a little bit about that. I found an map image of exactly what path the solar eclipse is going to take, where you will get the best view. Looks like the western United States is really going to get the full show. So, feel a little left out, but, we all get our turn on this. If you are in the area, that would certainly be, with proper eye protection, something worth doing. Now, the new moon in Libra, I found this poster on Pinterest of various suggested activities, and it does seem all about bringing one's spirit back into balance. However we've been tousled and jostled, whatever counterbalance influence that we need in our life, that seems like a good day to where we can hit the reset button. So if you've been feeling that with the seasonal hustle and bustle, or if you just happen to have a really rough retrograde season over the summer, because let's be honest, who didn't? The planet certainly jostled things. The new moon in Libra is an opportunity for us to bring things back on a more even keel. Then October 28th, we will have that full moon in Taurus. So think about very grounded energy, logic, patience, stubbornness. That's going to be essentially what's in the ether on that particular day. And interestingly, on that day, we will also have a lunar eclipse. And this is another map. If I understood it correctly, the lighter areas are where you're going to get the best viewing of it. And the darker areas is where it's either not going to be visible or it will be very, very limited. So find yourself on the map, I guess. This could be another opportunity to see something really cool. But with the full moon in Taurus, it is about restoring our comfort. It is about certainly setting intentions to where, I'm not going to have this disheveled life anymore. I'm going to be in a better place. I'm going to take hold of myself, pull myself together, and I'm going to, essentially sort out my household, my life, whatever it is that's in a current state of chaos. And this makes very good sense because, at the new moon in Libra, we're trying to restore equilibrium. And then once Taurus comes around, it's about let's be comfortable. We don't have to constantly, feel on edge or feel like we have to keep our guard up all of the time. That's not very healthy. And of course, we're getting an opportunity in October to really set ourselves to rights. So that's something to look forward to. Now, as I did mention retrogrades, we do still currently have 5 planets in retrograde. Jupiter is retrograding in Taurus. That is a fixed Earth sign. And when I was looking up information, I kept coming across this keyword of reevaluate beliefs, or words to that effect. And I feel, because these are all outer planets, and if you're not familiar with astrology, the outer planets they tend to represent influences and energies that are felt on a more of a societal level or a worldwide level, rather than something that's necessarily getting at us individually. Unless, of course, in your natal chart you have any of these configurations, in which case you might be really feeling the effects of this. But for the rest of us, it's more of, this is the atmosphere we're in. When it comes to reevaluating beliefs, from what I've observed from public commentary, in a variety of ways, is that seems to be where people are at. They're examining all of their presuppositions, their assumptions, the premise upon which they base other ideas, and they're saying, okay, is that really so? Am I actually on solid ground, or do I think what I think just because, well, I'm used to it? This is something that is where we're at, and it's what everyone else is doing, and so I was doing it too. Or is it something that requires adjustment? I do feel like people have been in that zone for a little while. Then Saturn is retrograding in Pisces. That is a mutable water sign. And the advice on that I came across over and over again was to focus on ambitions and responsibilities. And of course, Saturn has often been called the karma planet. Whatever you have earned, you will be reaping back in. And, of course, that's also a good theme for the general season of harvest, even though we're getting past the main part of the harvest and we're heading into Samhain for the final harvest festival of the year. It is still about collecting that which you have put into things. And when you think about your ambitions, first of all, are your ambitions your own? Are you responding to any kind of external pressure? Are you doing the things that you really believe you should be doing, that you want to be doing? Or is it something that feels like someone else had this idea, and then rather than take the trouble to do the idea themselves, they want you to do it for them? What is the nature of your ambitions? Make sure that they are really proper for your life. And then, of course, the whole idea of responsibility, which is a drum that pagans have been beating on for many a year now, about the need to take responsibility for these things. So if we have found ourselves slacking in that area, if we have not really been stepping up to the plate the way that we know that we should, we probably should bring ourselves back into balance with that before Saturn comes out of retrograde, because then things will be different and your situation will kind of be what it is until the next retrograde, when the conditions will be ideal for you having another go at this. Then the planet Uranus is retrograding Taurus. That is a fixed Earth sign. He does not like being in Taurus. That seems to be the collective wisdom of all the astrology channels that I watched and all of the articles that I've been reading. It is very much tied to the idea of rebellion and independence. And I do feel like we have been in a state of rebellion. And it's always a question of, are we in rebellion because something truly is tyrannical, or are we in rebellion because we don't like what reality is? Because if it's a struggle against reality and just this is the natural flow and order of things, we're going to lose every single time. But if it is rebellion in a just cause, if it is rebellion against a form of tyranny that is not going against the natural order, then there's probably a lot of reasons why we would be feeling that, we want to separate ourselves. We don't want to be dependent on someone else. and we don't really want to be dictated to by anyone else. And when you look at Saturn and Uranus, you might feel that these energies are in conflict with each other. And they certainly could be, especially if you are also feeling the effects of Jupiter quite strongly about the need to reevaluate your beliefs. This can be pretty scary territory. And, so if you're feeling that internal struggle to where you feel like you really have to go back to the drawing board, you aren't alone. I've certainly been feeling this to a degree in my own life, and probably other people could testify to that as well. But this is just going to be the conditions that we're in. So I would suggest in all of these cases that the best thing to do is not to struggle against all of this, but to simply accept that these are the weather conditions, energetically speaking, and I need to make the most of these energies for what they are, because this could be, the slow, tortured process of us really coming into a new chapter in our lives and feeling better about life in general. So good things can come out of all of the struggle. That's the point. Neptune, of course, is still retrograding in Pisces, again, mutable water sign. For this particular retrograde, it's all about strengthening our spirituality, our intuition, our creativity. We might also feel a bit of that conflicting energy from Jupiter about the need to reevaluate our beliefs. But the benefit of every spiritual reawakening or a spiritual reevaluation or even a spiritual crisis is that when you come out on the other side, you do tend to be on much firmer ground, and your intuition is much more honed because it's being based upon clearer-eyed vision and a more open heart. And of course, that lends a lot more opportunities for our creativity. I mean, things have been so regimented lately, at least they have been in my life, and I've been noticing a lot of commentary. Everything's very formulaic and just kind of just there comes a point where we're not, the order is not serving us, that we are serving the order. And so creativity is a way to break through that with a little bit of healthy chaos. Pluto is still retrograding in Capricorn, a cardinal earth sign. This is an opportunity to reflect upon transformation and rebirth, particularly as it has pertained to our own lives. And Pluto is going to be going direct on the 10th of October at 8:09 p.m. Central Time. So that is coming to an end. And the thing about transformation and rebirth, it is also an opportunity for us to re-examine our self-image and whether or not we are living in a manner that aligns with our purpose, because we all have our different jobs to do and our different states of being that are necessary in this world. So we need to ask ourselves, am I doing what I ought to be doing, or am I doing what somebody else ought to be doing? So lots of food for thought there, as per usual. Now, we are currently in the Celtic tree month of Ivy. Ivy, as you can see, is called the survivor plant. The people who have this particular sign as their birth sign, they tend to be spiritual, generous, and have good survival skills. But when we look at it as a particular time of year, that relates to an energy that is about that. Maybe I need to be more flexible. Maybe I need to explore different options. If I'm going to thrive, I might need to bend. I might need to explore different things. I might have to learn how to adapt. And with its connections with spirituality, you might find yourself looking towards gods and goddesses that have something to do with weaving, something to do with chaos. The people who, they might have to come up with a harebrained plan, but at the end of it, they got through and they achieved their objectives. They might have a really solid advice for us if we can reach out to them in meditation during this particular time of year. Now, on the 28th, so super late into this month, we'll be going into the Celtic tree month of Reed. Reed is called the Inquisitor because it is a truth seeker. It's very curious. It wants to explore. Has a lot in common with Sagittarians, doesn't it, from the sound of things? But for Reed, when we are moving into that month, we might want to shift our focus to deities or to other beings that do have a little bit more of that sense of adventure. What lies beyond that next hill? So that's something to think about, that as we get closer to Samhain, we might want to renew that sense of adventure within ourselves and reach out to other deities, two deities, I should say, that share that same sense of wonder of, I want to know, I want to see if there's something I haven't discovered before. And this could also be an opportunity for you to work a little bit on that spiritual renewal. If, as we were talking about about the planetary retrogrades, if you felt like, I do feel stuck, I have felt stagnant, and this is an opportunity to at least be in a different place, do something else. Next, Samhain at the end of the month, Halloween to the rest of the mortal world. And the big question is, have you made your plans? I found that if I leave things to the last minute, I don't get as much out of my rituals or just out of the celebrations in general if I don't, do the proper prep work, and of course prep work gets a little boring, it's a little mundane, I might have to make a list, how frightfully dull, but the good outcome is that, on the day, things flow smoothly. I've got a nice order to the day. And when it comes time for my ritual, I feel emotionally and mentally and spiritually prepared for it. So there are benefits in and attending to some of the more mundane details. And of course, I found this poster, and it had various different suggestions about activities. You might see something that particularly resonates with you, and it really just depends. I feel that this year for Samhain, a lot of people are having this really individualized experience. They're really having a reckoning with themselves. They're feeling that pull towards something more ancestral about, I feel like I've lost a part of myself. I want to reach out. I need to reconnect and all these other things. So if you find yourself feeling a bit topsy-turvy about exactly what you want to do, don't be discouraged. Just do some brainstorming. Consider doing something that perhaps you haven't done before for Samhain, and just see what really resonates with you. The thing that you need to be doing it specifically, that will come to you in due course if you allow for it. Let's see next. Now, for the October theme of the month, I chose ancestors for obvious reasons, because this is all about our ancestors. This is all about those who have shed the mortal coil and, their influence from beyond. Of course, on Samhain itself, there is an anticipation of various beings roving about a little bit more. And some years, the energy from that is absolutely crackling. So to go along with the theme of ancestors, I chose several things to go along with that. To beginning with the yew tree. The reason why I chose the yew tree was not only because of its associations with death, but also with the idea of immortality. Yes, things die, but things also come back, and that pattern of existence is what endures. And of course, yew is also very handy for protection spells. So if you are having some struggles, perhaps with the unseen, or you are having to deal with something that may not necessarily be friendly to you, incorporating you into your workings, probably a good place to start. Then for our animal, I chose the bat. They are creatures of the night after all, and they are adorable sky puppies. And of course, during this time of year, we have the lore about vampires, and I just couldn't resist. And I saw that adorable picture, and that was that. Good enough for me. We can focus on the properties of bats, and you'll see a little bit of this referenced in at least it'll be once a week on the daily forecast videos. There'll be a little tidbit about bats. For the crystal, I chose obsidian for its protective capabilities. Very useful in protective spells or for keeping on you in order to deflect energies that you don't necessarily want coming into your personal system. Very handy dandy if you're doing some shielding work. You can incorporate that into your intentions. And then for a mythical being, I chose the Fae because, of course, the Fae are about to have at least in legend, their great swapping between the Seelie and the Unseelie courts. And as this is the season of mischief, the fairies, they are very much in tune with that particular energy. Of course, they're mischievous. Of course, they're going to be roving about and doing little things. So it might not be the worst idea to leave out the occasional bowl of honey or milk, or leaving something shiny for them, just to make sure they stay in good humor, and that any pranks they might play are done in the spirit of good fun and not in the spirit of trying to teach you a lesson. The goddess I chose for October is the goddess Rhiannon. She's a goddess from a region that we now call Wales. Of course, back in that time, it wasn't called Wales, but now we do. And there's a lot of things that I really love about her story. She shows such patient endurance. And also, she has a variety of associations with death, but also with the realm of the Fae and the shadow aspects of life, and getting through them and managing things in a graceful way, in a dignified way. She certainly did in her own tales of adversity. So if you haven't reread any of her stories lately, she might be something you want to review. And of course, also contemplate about how she's connected to this energy of this particular season, because the idea of death, of loss, of uncertainty, and also of having to deal with those mysteries when things are not not always as they seem. She could provide some excellent guidance. And then, of course, for the god, I chose Loki. It is the season of mischief, and I do traditionally give him extra special attention at this particular time of year. But also, another motivation for choosing Loki to deal with this isn't only because I did want to have a Celtic and a Norse deity from both pantheons to represent both sides of my heritage, but also because he is a great wielder of chaos. He understands how to use these kinds of energies to advantage and benefit. And since we've had so much chaos over the past couple of years, I feel like we could really benefit from his guidance because saying, okay, yes, everything's in flux. How can you turn this around to benefit you? Instead of feeling, oppressed by it, instead of feeling that, you wish it would just go away and that things would get back to normal, how can you actually utilize this time of flux to where it can actually benefit your life? So he might be useful to meditate with. And of course, the whole point of this month is really for us all to honor our roots, our ancestral roots, our spiritual roots, and even our cultural roots. What is it? What are all the components that came to create the world that we're interacting with and that have really shaped us as people today? These are things that are very well worth meditating upon. And then, oddly, I have also felt this urge to do some honor or to get in contact with Hades and Persephone. Now, of course, Hades is the lord of the underworld. He is a god of the dead, not the god of death, the way some people misunderstand. And of course, Persephone is his revered queen, and she also has that association with springtime and her coming and going. At least in the Greek mythos, is what turns the seasons, or is the catalyst for the turning of the seasons. And I've just found myself very drawn to certain versions of their story. And while, I haven't had very good success with anyone from the Greek or the Roman pantheons, I have reached out to a few. One gave me a very polite dismissal. That was Hecate. Aphrodite, as soon as I came into contact with her energy, I ran in the other direction. We will not suit. But with Hades and Persephone, it feels as though I'm being drawn towards old friends that I didn't even know that I had. So I'm going to be focusing upon that. And of course, that got me to thinking, as anyone else who might be watching this channel, have you felt drawn to any deities or to any kind of beings that ordinarily you wouldn't really be drawn towards? Have there been any surprises? Because, again, it's that spirit of mischief. It's that little ounce of chaos of saying, we're changing things up on the board. So let me know about that if you're experiencing anything of the kind. Now, you'll probably be aware that I have been making a big deal about getting more rooted in our own personal local surroundings. So I went to the website for the Missouri Department of Conservation and their field guide just to see, what's, kind of I should be on the watch for this season. And they had that there was this blue flower, the prairie gentian in bloom. Very pretty. I have not yet observed it, but I'm definitely going to be on keeping my eyes peeled, particularly when I'm at the farm or going to and from. It does seem like one of those flowers that I might just kind of notice on the side of the road or a little bit into the wooded areas of the farm. So it's a really gorgeous blue. I mean, you can't fault the colors. It's beautiful, especially, if the leaves ever turn. That contrast will be even nicer, but that's something to be on the watch for. Then there's the black and yellow garden spider. It seems to be lurking about, at least that's what the website said. It did reassure us that they are harmless to humans. So I don't think we need to live in any particular dread. Now, mind you, it is my firm opinion that spiders are outdoor animals, not indoor animals. So I certainly wouldn't be keeping one inside of the house or putting up with that. But, if it's out and about, they're doing a good job of getting rid of the last lurking bugs, which, will the bugs ever go away? I'm so bored with them. Then the sugar maple leaves are going to be turning. They have yet to turn because, the weather has yet to get cold and we've yet to have the proper conditions for that to happen. The trees are not getting the signals we want them to get. But I suppose the later they turn in the year, the better show they'll be putting on by the time Samhain comes around. And they might even be lingering a little bit through November, which, is always nice to have just a little something before everything is bare and we really are in just, the basic bone structure of winter. So definitely looking forward to that. Apparently, Missouri is really known for its sugar maples. So I'm hoping we get a good show this year. And then we have the northern shovelers, which is obviously a bird species. They and other kinds of birds, they are beginning their migration. Not only does Missouri have some bird species leaving, but there are some bird species coming. And so by getting better acquainted with all of these things, it's helping me become more in tune with my own local surroundings. And I would suggest, whatever state you're living in, go to the Department of Conservation website, see what they say just to keep your eyes peeled for, and then do a little bit of digging. Find out what you can about these things. There may not be any established lore. However, if you come across these things or you absorb them, you might take a few mental notes. Just see what you can observe from their energy, particularly if you're a practitioner of the craft. This is right up our alley because part of our job in this day and age is to build up the lore for our own local surroundings, so that 500 years from now, we won't have a generation of witches who are essentially having to do what we're doing right now. This is our contribution to the future. Now, I looked up a Samhain tarot spread. There's all kinds of illustrations for Samhain tarot spreads on Pinterest. So I found one, and I thought it would be fun for us to go through because divination is such a wonderful way of looking within and getting an idea of whether or not you need to change course a little bit. So this one is called The Witch's New Year. And I'll be doing this or another Samhain spread, actually on the day. But for now, I thought, let's see where we're at the beginning of the month and then compare where we are later on. So the first question that this spread asks is, as the darkest quarter of the year starts, what needs to be shed and laid to eternal rest? This is the big let go. This isn't the, I let it go, but I didn't really let it go, and I picked it back up again because I don't know how to let go of my burdens. This is for realsies. This is actually letting go properly. For that, I drew the Knight of Pumpkins. In this deck, pumpkins would be pentacles. And the core meaning of this card is dedication to a cause. Now, that is very interesting because if you've been following my channel, you have seen that, there are a lot of things in our society I'm very concerned about. I am very concerned about the future of paganism. I want us to not only have a future, but to have a good one. So the idea that the dedication to the cause is something that needs to be laid to eternal rest. That is suggesting to me that going forward, what's really needed is a more laid back approach, a much more, here I am, this is how we live, this is what we believe, this is how we do things, and just, make of that what you will kind of approach, at least in the public realm, and that perhaps that will do more good than anything more academic or scholarly. So I'll definitely be meditating a little bit about what needs to really morph in my approach, on my channel and on a lot of different areas of life. So that's good to know. The second question of the spread says, during this liminal time when the veil between the worlds is the thinnest, how can I connect to my ancestors? So I drew the Seven of Bats, and bats in this deck relate to the suit of swords. And the Seven of Bats is about setbacks, ineffective plans, and misfortune. So isn't that interesting? I can connect to my ancestors through setbacks, ineffective plans, and misfortune. What that suggests to me is that I need to approach them in a spirit of humility, and a spirit of I have much to learn. I certainly have had setbacks this year. In many ways, 2023 has been the year of finding out things that don't work at all, and having the frustration and even the grieving process from that. And realizing that, a lot of times things need to be adjusted, or sometimes you might have a good plan, but it's not the right plan for the moment, and making your peace with that. So I think that'll be interesting to go to my ancestors and saying, okay, so since I've been out of alignment, what should I be doing? And listening. And that's always the hardest part, isn't it? We all go into these things with the best of intentions, don't we? We intend to listen. We intend to exercise humility. But, when it comes to it, sometimes we're a little bit resistant. But, we do what we can. Then the third, which I don't know why on the poster that it's labeled 2 twice, but this is actually the third question. It says, as the night grows longer, how can I embrace the shadow medicine that rises up in my heart space? Now, for this, I drew the High Priestess, which represents balance, duality, and the mysteries. So the idea of the shadow medicine, it is becoming comfortable with the unknown, with the dark, in the sense of the things that I'm not necessarily comfortable with, or the things that are hidden from my conscious mind. Finding that balance, accepting the duality of my own nature just as a practitioner, because, the old saying about witches are walkers on both sides of the veil. One foot's on this side and the other foot's on that side. That is more literally true than what non-practitioners could ever imagine. And getting more reconnected with the mysteries, because a lot of my work has really been focused upon, providing explanations. These are ideas that have stood the test of time. These are things that we can be pretty sure we're actually on solid ground about. And whereas with the mysteries, it's a lot more not sure. Not only not sure of what's what, but not sure if we're even asking the right questions when we try to explore those mysteries. So as that's something that apparently that my heart needs, that is telling me that it's another opportunity to let go a little bit. Now, the fourth question is, what mask am I wearing that disguises my true self? And for that, I drew the Two of Imps. Imps are tied to the suit of wands. And it is about conflict resolution to advance a goal, or at least the attempt to. And I feel that I have really been stuck in that this year, of trying to reconcile various pagan paths, saying, okay, can we just focus on what we have in common instead of, harping endlessly on what we don't have in common. And it's very frustrating. So, and I suppose the mask that I've been wearing, as far as that goes, is that the fact that was ever anything I wanted to do, because I don't enjoy it. It's not very fun. It's not a fun message to take to the community, of saying, we really need to shift our focus. We need to be a little less concerned about all the differences and really focus upon the solid ground that we do have in common, so that we can build a better future. It's really, really wearying. So letting go of that mask is something I believe I'm very happy to do. The fifth question asks, what blessings will emerge as the wheel turns to a new year? I drew the Judgment card. And in this context, it's about spiritual awakening and breaking patterns. And that is something I've been wanting to do for a long time. Break the patterns, break the status quo, make things change, because things need to be renewed. And like the turning of the physical season, sometimes internally and within our own souls, we need a turning of our inner seasons. And that spiritual awakening tells me that I'm about to go on a somewhat different journey than what I've been on, which, as I've been meditating on various things, not really surprised about that. And it's nice to have a little bit of that confirmation that, I will be going on, if not a completely different tack, but in a way that is a bit more true to my personal purpose. And then the sixth is a message for Samhain from the ancestors. And I drew the Two of Pumpkins. Again, that's Pentacles. And that's weighing choices, a struggle for harmony, and the attempt to achieve balance. So that's very interesting that my ancestors are really reaching out and wanting to give me that specific message, because, and I'm sure I deserve it, just because I can be a very focused individual. I can be very methodical of, here's the plan, I've executed the plan, and now I'm waiting for the results, and I'm all focused on this one thing. And so this counsel to go more into balance, it'll be a little bit more of allow outcomes to take care of themselves. Do what you ought to be doing, yes, but then also don't forget the person that needs a little bit more. So interesting reading. If you try this reading out for yourself and you try out the spread, send me an email or leave me a message about it in the comments, and just say, how did that go for you exactly? What did you glean from it? Do you feel like it put you on a track for a useful focus for you for the month of October, or did it not? Let me know. So, first I'm going to get a drink of water. Now I have a yearly tradition of taking out my old black and white classic Universal movie monsters and giving them a full watch through, including, the spoofy Abbott and Costellos. I love them all. And I've talked before about the symbolism and what I think it says about the consciousness about, the mummy, the wolfman, the Frankenstein monster, the bride, Dracula, the invisible man, the swamp creature. I've talked about these things before, but I want to talk about them in a little bit more general terms. about what they actually represent when it comes to fear. Because part of this season, one of the benefits of it, between the spooky decorations and the spooky ambiance music, and the decor, and the scary stories and all this and that, it's about having a time of year where we are experiencing and deliberately experiencing fear in a more controlled way. It's not something that's just hit upon us. It's allowing us to experiencing these things in a manner in which we're not completely off the rails. It allows us to come to terms with some, I don't want to say weaknesses, but some vulnerabilities that we have within our souls, and to decide what to do about them and what that says about our instincts and everything else. It really is a chance for us to bring ourselves back into greater balance. And it's so odd, because we just passed Avon, and the equinox always has a very strong sensation about the need to achieve balance. But I feel that theme of balance really bleeding into the witch's new year. So that is an interesting thing. But think about the mummy. What happened to the mummy? What do we see just from his costume alone? He's all bound up, completely bound up. And we found that with the character as well, bound by fate in this horrible way. And then with the Wolfman, what do we have? The beast within, who's coming out. And we know he's always on the verge of coming out. And we don't know what he'll do. And we're fearful of the damage that it could cause. The lack of self-control. We certainly have reasons to fear that. Then the Frankenstein monster, something that was ripped apart, pulled back together, and this hodgepodge any which way, and having this sense of isolation, having a sense of, you aren't really complete. You look whole, all the parts have been stitched together, but what about the fractures of the soul? What about the questions of identity? What about the questions of purpose? And it's similar with the bride. We did not see very much of her in the classic films, just enough for her to come into being, and enough to see that she was actually rejecting the Frankenstein monster. She found him frightening too. Also, she represented also someone who was stitched together, but also lacked the self-awareness to realize that essentially, her lot of existence was the same as the Frankenstein's monster's lot. They were equally frightening to those who, anyone who, wasn't invested into the experimentation of Frankenstein. It's a terrifying thought to be in such a state, not be aware of it, because how can you ever bring yourself into cohesion? How can you heal from all of that if you don't understand that there's a problem to begin with? So that's an interesting fear that has really stuck with me with that. Then Dracula, in many ways, the story of Dracula, it is in a way, I think it is a story about greed and the fear of not having enough, or the fear of things being taken away, or having to pay such a heavy price to pursue the thing that you were greedy for, that it has come with irreparable consequences that are highly detrimental. And that idea of pursuing our ambitions to the point where we're damaging ourselves, or that we're trying to get something from a corrupted source that's never going to give us what it is we truly desire. That is a very scary thought, especially in our go society, because people are going all the time. They're not stopping to think. And the few people who are stopping to think, well, they seem to be struggling with some inertia. And I'm like, if we could just swap some energy between these two parties, both sides might come into better balance with themselves. But it does show what happens when we allow our energy to get too far committed on just one side of the scale. There has to be balance, because otherwise it can yield terrible outcomes for us. Then there's the invisible man, who we can't see, unless he's, covering himself with clothes. And then what we're seeing is his outward disguise. We never really seen the invisible man himself. And that idea of invisibility and having to go out of your way to become visible, that does strike an interesting chord in our day and age of social media. Because in a way, we've never been more visible than we ever have been before. If we had a town crier who was announcing everyone's activities from the highest hill, we could scarcely have less privacy. Everyone can be in everyone else's business as much as they want to. And yet, despite that, it's as though we're not heard anymore. We're more invisible than we ever were before. There's been a diminishment in people treating other people, as humans, as people who have intrinsic value. And also, there's this idea of, you could hide among the shadows, you can see what's going on, but you can never really completely be a participant in the rest of the world. And that is a terrible sense of powerlessness. That any impact you have, that it's almost happening on the sly. It's not happening in a way that is direct, in a way that's open, in a way that we can truly own. And my goodness, does that not feel exactly how it feels when you start thinking about some of the effects that technology has really had upon us, or other things that are so big that it just seems like it's beyond our control, and there's no way for us to have an impact. It is a terrible, terrible thing to be trapped in that kind of fear and not see a way out. I mean, there's a reason why people are going crazy. Then with a swamp creature, coming from the primordial soup, with very primordial desires and designs. That is, I think, a deep-rooted fear of our most primitive aspects of our nature, even more so than the fear of the beast within with the wolf man. This is something that is even um, that goes almost down to the molecular level. And these are all representing different fears that exist within our psyches to one degree or another. And of course, depending upon our personalities and our life experiences and just what's been going on with us recently, each of these kinds of fears will hit us in a different particular way. So if you haven't really done a deep dive into any of these classic movie monsters and you're wanting to get, just for fun, get a little bit more out of it, might kind of rewatch the movies, contemplate it, not, watch it as a movie, but really think about what is it saying as a morality tale. So that could yield some interesting things. Now, because we are getting so close to that spiritual new year, I thought thinking about renewal and witchy resolutions would be very much in order. And if you're not a witch and you still want to acknowledge the spiritual new year, you certainly can. This isn't, exclusive or anything. It's silly that even has to be specified, but that's the world we're living in, isn't it? So I asked myself a couple of questions, and I'm hoping that some of this will resonate with other people. The first question is, what does moving forward look like for the spiritual new year? It's all very well to say things like, I want change, I want things to be different, I want to have renewal, I want to get beyond where I'm at. But without an idea of how you're going to achieve that or what you might be aiming for, you're not going to get very far. And I'm sure I don't need to say that. I'm sure everyone can, look into their own past and say, yeah, I didn't really have a vision. I did not have a destination. I didn't really have a goal. And so my energy just kind of scattered and everything just more or less remained in limbo. Not really looking to have that experience this year or, ever, if I'm being really honest with myself. So in order for things to be different, we have to, of course, allow them to be different. So if we start looking at areas of our lives that we know that, it's not working, the status quo is really not working, as difficult as it might be to actually make that final leap and saying, okay, I am actually doing things different, as hard as that might be, this is definitely the time for you to say, you know what, I'm breaking habit. I'm changing things. I'm doing something differently. And then resolutely keeping working towards that until that becomes the new habit, and you are at least walking in the proper direction that you're wanting to go in. Another question that arose in my mind was the debate between new explorations or the pursuit of mastery. And I have really felt this over the past year. So much external pressure, so many people extolling the praises of, I learned something new and I looked into this and I looked into this and blah, 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 blah. And I know so much about all of these different things. And I'm like, yeah, a couple of things, but I think there's a difference between being aware of what there is to explore and actually having, a better acquaintance with it, or having a skill that you have truly, truly mastered. And I do think that right now in the pagan community as a whole, we do need to be focusing a little bit more on mastery, about our understanding, about, have we actually grown in wisdom? Because just the endless pursuit of more information, I don't think I think we've reached the limit of what that can really help us with. If we don't transform that into application, if we don't transform that into, because I studied this, I have a better understanding of that, and because of that, that has made me a better practitioner. Without that, then it's just an exercise of showing off what a good memory you have. And if that's your thing, don't let me stop you, but I don't think that's a very good spiritual example. Whereas with the pursuit of mastery, and this is particularly relevant to the practice of witchcraft, it's one thing to know how to do certain things. It's another to be comfortable doing them and to have a great deal of confidence. And if so many witches I've encountered over the past couple of years, to one degree or another, with only a few notable exceptions, there has been this crisis of confidence, and they'll frequently say, "Oh, I feel like I don't know enough." Well, you probably do know enough. You read any witchcraft 101 book, if it's actually worth its salt, you know enough to get started. You know enough to start practicing your skills. The disconnect is probably just in that practical application, and I would really say, if you're not wanting to actually do the things, then my question is, what is it that you think you're doing? Why are you just collecting the information on how a particular path is done if ultimately that's not what you want? One of the questions I ask in all, Wicca 101, Wicca 202, Wicca 303, over and over again, I raise the question of, is this really what you want? Is this going to make you happy? Is this something that you feel a drive to do? Because if you don't, it will turn into drudgery. And why would you want your spiritual life to be drudgery? I mean, there is a certain matter of routine, but there's a difference between routine and drudgery. And if you really love your craft, if you really, really love it, you're going to want to get good at it. And the only way to get good at anything is through practice. So that's something I'm going to be thinking about. And if that's resonating with you, absolutely turn your attention to that as well. And then the last question that kept popping into my mind is, what will make things fresh again? I don't know about you, but the general state of the world, it feels like it's same song, different verse. I'm kind of bored. Even with the controversies, I'm bored. In these endless debates, I'm like, I don't care. The reason why I don't care, and it doesn't matter what realm the debate is happening in, whether it's political, religious, cultural, or your favorite color. The reason why I've gotten so bored with debates is because it doesn't seem like anything groundbreaking ever happens. No one ever says, "Oh, that's a good point. That really is giving me pause." They're just racking up points for their ideological teams, and people at the end of it, always claim that their guy won. What does that achieve? Life is not a spectator sport, and any of the major discussions that our society needs to have with it amongst itself. This isn't about winning exactly. It's about, are we getting somewhere? Have we improved the state of human understanding? And that's why I am thinking about the value of discussions, but also the value of being content to look at things with our own eyes and forming our own judgments. Because I mean, there is value in consulting with others. I've been a big proponent of that, and I still believe in that. There's a great deal of value in comparing notes and trying to get a little bit closer to the truth, so far as what is humanly possible. But sometimes you need to drown out the noise and just ask yourself what you think, and then act upon your own judgment. And I think for me personally, that will make my practice fresh again. So I suppose the only thing to do is just ask you, what would make your practice fresh again? How are you going to make the most of this Samhain season? And that, gang, is pretty much what I have got for us today. So again, if you enjoyed it, if anything I've said has made sense to you, please leave me a like, leave me a comment, subscribe to the channel if you have not already done so. If you want to have a little bit more of a one-on-one discussion, you're welcome to email me. It's BrigantiaBlackbird@protonmail.com. It is mentioned in the description box, and just, give me a holler if you have any thoughts on this. But I think that'll do it for now, and I'll let you get back to your day. Thank you so much for being with me, and bye-bye.